Hello, everybody. Kristal here at the Fibromyalgia Pain Chronicles and Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia. And before I move forward, just want to let everybody know I'm not feeling so great, but the show, or in this case, conference, must go on. And we're bringing you an informational discussion today, discussion panel for the Fibromyalgia Community Conference. And joining me today is Al Knoblock and Evan Smith, who are both team leaders of Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia. For those who may follow me or have seen some of my awareness and advocacy posts, I'm very passionate of making sure we're amplifying the voices of men with fibromyalgia because there's this ongoing centuries old stereotype that fibromyalgia is predominantly in women, and that is not the case. There's actually some patient-driven research and scientific research that has shown that about 40% of individuals with fibromyalgia are men. And while I do my best to amplify men's voices and veteran voices living with fibromyalgia, all I am is a platform. And so I thought it was best to discuss this topic with two of our men fibro warriors through Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia, where they can share a little bit of their journey and how engaging in awareness projects and advocacy initiatives has helped amplify their voices, the voices of the fibromyalgia community, but also showcase the importance of amplifying the voices of men, including male veterans living with fibromyalgia. So to start off, Evan, I'm going to turn this over to you and just ask you basically in a few minutes, just to share a little bit of your personal health journey and how that led to you becoming an advocate on behalf of the veteran and fibromyalgia communities.
All right, thank you, Kristal. So my name is Evan Smith. I have been a military service member who has experienced fibromyalgia, several other issues as well. But really, my journey started. I was in the Army National Guard and ended up getting hurt during some active training. Ended up having a couple surgeries, and then not too far after that was actually infected with a tick-borne illness. And then about a year later was hit by someone who ran a red light and ended up with basically an explosion in my central nervous system. And so since then, I've had several different surgeries. And what I found to be the most challenging in my journey was that all these doctors want to individualize your care, and nobody looks at the whole system. And so I really struggled with pain, with fatigue, with the mental struggle of trying to do all of these different things and trying to get my medical team together. And that's when I found, that there weren't too many voices, especially men out there for fibromyalgia. And so ended up running into VVFF and Kristal's platform here. And so since then, I've been able to help advocate as much and when I can. I'm trying to bring more awareness to not only the fibro community, but also fibro for veterans and fibro for other men. So we've really started to explore what we can do to help others. And we've been doing quite a bit this last year. So it's really exciting.
It has been exciting. And all of us here on today, we actually connected 5 years ago. And what would you say as far as the awareness piece, especially for men with fibromyalgia and veterans with fibromyalgia, where do you think we've been and where we are now? Do you feel that there's been more awareness and support and inclusion of men within the fibromyalgia community? Like, have you seen a trend of improvement as far as representation of men living with fibromyalgia?
I think with the different social platforms and as many initiatives that have been put out, I know personally, I have seen more and more men really just come to the table before they've been put on the back burner when it comes to this, with the stigma of being a man and being tough or being a veteran and not talking about your issues or your pain. That's a challenge for men to then be able to express that. And then secondly, when you go to a doctor, they don't necessarily see the pain because you're trying to tough it out. You're trying to put on that persona of not being in pain. And so what we've been able to do is really share and express, hey, I am a man and I'm living with chronic pain. I'm struggling. The mental challenges are there. All of the different issues that we face, we're trying to share these. And what that does, I do think that we've actually, we have seen an increase in men coming to the table saying, hey, I'm living with this too. And I appreciate you speaking out because I feel like I'm alone. And so in the last 5 years, I truly think that I have my eyes open to it. And there's no doubt about that, that I probably have a bias, but I see more and more men expressing, hey, I have this issue. I don't know what's going on. My doctors are not helping, or they don't know what's going on, and I need help. What do we do? And so being able to be a small piece of that, to be able to share our struggles, be able to break the stigma of being a male who needs to hold everything in until your body collapses. We need to get rid of that stigma and really be able to help men advocate for their care as well as everybody else with fibro.
Thank you so much for sharing your insight on that. And now I'm going to turn over to Al Knoblock. Again, he's a team leader for Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia as well, and is engaged in several awareness and advocacy initiatives. And also, I want to give Al a shout out. As you can see, he's behind the camera, but that's kind of been his role with Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia, like 80% of the time. So if you've ever seen any of our awareness videos, like our fibromyalgia awareness videos, our chronic pain awareness videos, our invisible disability awareness videos, or our Team Fibro Reloaded informational interview series. All that content and videos have all been edited by Al. So it's only fitting that he spent so much time behind the scenes that he's behind the scenes today. But the reality is sometimes technology doesn't like us too much. So while Al is behind the scenes, I want to make sure that we are recognizing all of his hard work that has been going on with Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia for the last 5 years, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have all these awesome, creative, edited videos that are polished and professional for everybody to engage and enjoy. So, Al, thank you for joining today. And just if you could take a few minutes to talk about your health journey and how this led to you becoming a fibromyalgia advocate.
Sure, Kristal. Thanks for having me. My name is Evan. My name is Al Knoblock. My story is actually not too dissimilar from Evan's. I'm a 24-year Air Force veteran. Around 2010, and it's been 13 years ago. It's hard to believe, but started having issues, fatigue, muscle pain, memory problems, all sorts of stuff, and I didn't know what was going on with me. Went to the doctor. They weren't too much of a help. They ran all the blood tests, everything. They checked thyroid, vitamin D, all sorts of stuff. And they couldn't really find anything wrong. And of course, everyone has to be their own advocate. Started doing some research, came up with stuff like, shoot, is this MS? Is it lupus? Is it chronic fatigue syndrome? I mean, there was just a litany of things. And the only thing I could find that cross-matched everything was fibromyalgia. So I began looking that up. And of course, all the information you had was on women. And I'd never even heard of this and didn't know. It's like, well, it probably can't be that. I should bring it up. But, you know, went back to the doctor and was almost embarrassed to mention it. And she was, thankfully, she was somewhat familiar with fibromyalgia because her aunt had it. And so the diagnosis went on, and that's what they diagnosed me with, fibromyalgia. And that actually prompted my retirement from the military. I wanted to stay longer, but I just couldn't do it anymore. Again, like Evan said, there's not a lot of information or sites. I had joined a Facebook page and was a moderator for them. And then, of course, through them, I met Kristal. And that began my journey of advocacy, real advocacy, and trying to make a difference and highlight the fact that this isn't just a woman's illness or woman's disease. Men get it too. And as Evan said, most men, you know, they need to be bleeding out of their eyes to go to the doctor. And you're kind of embarrassed with it and all this, but there's nothing to be embarrassed about it. It happens, but it isn't just a woman's disease.
Correct. And so, Al, here's a question for you. And also, Evan, I'm going to also ask you to answer this question. How do you feel that by sharing your personal journey with fibromyalgia and engaging in all the awareness projects that we have collaborated on and engaging in state level and federal level advocacy, how do you feel that, do you feel that this is starting to change the stigma about fibromyalgia? Do you feel that, participating and promoting awareness and engaging in advocacy is empowering men? So, I mean, do you feel that since starting your journey here with the advocacy and awareness portion, do you think it's helping break the stigma? Do you feel it's empowering other men to speak up and, for lack of a better term, because we're all ex-military, but join the ranks of advocacy for men living with fibromyalgia?
Yeah, I believe it has made a difference, although the problem is it's slow going, but that's just, the way it is. But I know for a fact some of the things we've done. I mean, it puts it out there to the general public. People see it, and especially with the state and federal level advocacy, because even like say getting it recognized in the state of Texas, local news, they pick that stuff up annually, and they'll, you're watching your morning news, you got your coffee, you're about to get ready for work. They'll mention National Fibromyalgia Awareness Day or whatever it might be, and they may go into it a little bit, but it really puts it out to the public, because it has not been spotlighted at all. And there are so many people who suffer with it that I think the advocacy that we've done, as I said, I mean, I can see it because more men are willing to come out and realize that they have this, and they're more willing, I think, to go to their doctors. But again, it's a slow road.
Yes, and for everyone tuning in, Al mentioned receiving recognition from his state governor of Texas, a proclamation for Fibromyalgia Awareness Day, which is May 12th. And Evan was also successful in obtaining and successfully in advocating for proclamation requests from his governor as well in the state of Indiana. And what happened with that is there were several Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia team leaders, team members, and Patriot supporters that had successfully advocated for and obtained either county executives, mayors, or governors issuing a proclamation for Fibromyalgia Awareness Day. And then, fortunately for Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia, Kristen Tomasino, she is a team leader as well, and she's our volunteer news media coordinator, and she put out a press release of all these proclamations that were obtained successfully. And Al, as you pointed out, all of a sudden, we were seeing like major local news stations picking it up, and we are seeing international news outlets and news media picking up the story. And within 72 hours, it was picked up by over 600 some news media outlets and news stations, including I saw some that picked it up in Paris, and I saw some in UK and Canada, but also we were seeing news media outlets that were not typical or focused on medical spaces or healthcare, where it was picked up by Yahoo Finance and Market Watch as well. And so that was a huge barrier that you all broke, because that has never happened before, where major business specific news outlets were running the story. And so, Evan, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can kind of, piggyback off of Al and share what you feel has created an impact through your personal journey that has led to these awareness initiatives and advocacy efforts that are being successful in promoting awareness. So when you were able to successfully advocate for that proclamation from your state governor of Indiana, How do you feel that impacted people in Indiana, the fibromyalgia community as a whole, but also how did it impact you and men with fibromyalgia from your perspective?
Yeah, when we got the proclamation, that really to me was it was not only the medical community, but really the state governments. It was the United States, because we got these passed in so many different states, coming to the table and saying, "Hey, your situation, your pain, all the things you're going through that your doctor may have just brushed off, we're giving you credibility for what you're going through. We're gonna put some substance and strengthen what you're saying, and we're gonna come up and support you." And so when you go to a doctor and you're seeking care for all of these different symptoms, that's the thing, is that this is such a dynamic um, issue. We feel so many different things, and tomorrow we could feel completely a whole different world of symptoms. And honestly, from probably from an initial medical evaluation, it doesn't make sense. You're trying to understand, why does my foot hurt so bad today all of a sudden, that I'm to the point where I feel like I actually need an X-ray? Why do all of my joints hurt today so bad that I don't know if I was in a car crash in my sleep? Like, you just don't understand what's going on. You don't understand the burning and the fire inside your muscle tissues. And so when you go to the doctor and you're saying, "Listen, I feel like I'm a 95-year-old man." And this started when I was in my late 20s. And for me, I have always had to fight this stigma even worse, because I'm 6'2", I'm 240 pounds. I love being a lumberjack and a countryman and an outdoorsman. And I want to lead and protect my family, and I want to do all these things. And that's, you take the soldier in me and you do all these things. And what that really means is that on the outside, what I want to be is a tough, strong, never ending Superman. That's what I want to be, for my kids, for my family. And what it comes down to is there's a fire inside my body going on that I have to get out, and I have to figure out how to treat, and I have to figure out how to live with this so that I can successfully be there for those people, for my family and for my spouse, and to be able to make an impact for other people. If we exhaust ourselves, we can't even, we can't advocate if we wear ourselves out to the point where we're in bed for 2 weeks. And that's oftentimes what happens. So when we fight the medical system and the healthcare system and trying to work through all these things, and basically, honestly, just like Al said, there's some embarrassment in this, and I feel like it came from the medical field. Oh, no, the test results came back. You're fine. The blood test came back. There's nothing. The X-ray doesn't show that you have a broken foot. And it's just this consistency of, well, the simple test results say you're fine, so you must be fine. So they push this to you that it's almost like a mental health issue. It's all in your head, and it's not. And I can promise you that. And I think that's been a big issue for the stigma, is that we have some medical professionals still are so old school that they're not researching, they're not understanding the developments. All of these new the medical groups that are going in and doing studies, coming out saying, "Hey, this is a neurological disorder. This is a real situation." And so working with these different groups, we're seeing that this is coming forward. And so when you get something, the state of Indiana says, "Hey, we're gonna take this and we're gonna run with a proclamation for fibromyalgia awareness," that really means something to me. And then in turn, I feel like if I'm receiving credibility in what I'm doing, it gives me even more strength to want to stand up and lift up those other people that are really struggling. I know that they're in the pit. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn medically, professionally. They don't know what to do. And so this advocacy work, it really, to me, it means a lot. And I really hope that the work that we're doing is starting to really show not only men, but other people, that what we're doing is we're bringing awareness to this that says, "Hey, you really do have a true disorder. It is a true situation. Your body is on fire. And we're going to give you credibility, and we're going to help you with some resources, how to move forward and how to live your life with the situation, instead of honestly following such a negative road that medical puts us towards." So yeah, this proclamation has been pretty incredible.
Well, so kind of to surmise and tie everything together that you and Al have expressed is that these federal recognitions of Fibromyalgia Awareness Day not only validated the struggle that everyone with fibromyalgia goes through, because they go to the doctors, often dismissed, often, I was told it was like all in my head before, and invalidated, and this, you know, these several governmental recognitions solidified that fibromyalgia is a real issue. We need to spotlight this. And it helped validate those who are living with it. And the one thing, because we did obtain several proclamations from different states, and however, half of those proclamations were successfully advocated for by male veterans living with fibromyalgia. And when those proclamations were shared on social media and whatnot, those were the ones that people engaged with the most. I mean, I know, Evan, with yours, when I shared it, when you shared it, there was within 24 hours well over 500 shares just on Facebook alone across the multiple platforms that I have on Facebook and your personal page. And same thing with Al. And we, you know, we shared everybody's successful advocacy work obtaining those proclamations. But what we saw was, so, I mean, we could say, yeah, it's made an impact, but we could visually see how much it meant to the community as a whole, but especially men and male veterans living with fibromyalgia, because those were the ones that everybody, you know, everybody was celebrating all the proclamations, but you gentlemen took the forefront, and I was really happy about that. I really was so excited to see all that excitement around it by everybody. And not just in the US. Like, I was seeing people sharing it in other countries, including like Egypt. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I know our cousins in Canada are sharing it, and our siblings in the UK are sharing it, in Australia. But then when I started seeing it in non-English speaking countries, picking it up through social media and sharing it, and I was like, thank you. That's what I wanted. Not just about promoting awareness for fibromyalgia, but to amplify your voices and really hit that stigma so hard that it just shatters it. And so we saw that happen. And I'm just so grateful, but also very proud of all of your efforts, your willingness to be vulnerable and put yourself out there as a voice and successfully break these barriers, or, you know, invisible ceilings you have to break through. And so, you know, after all the success of these proclamations and engaging in awareness initiatives and awareness videos, and then engaging in legislative federal advocacy, we were honored by Congresswoman Diaz-Barragán, 44th District of California, who issued a congressional commendation of recognition for everyone's efforts with the proclamations, with promoting awareness through social media and news outlets, and engaging in federal legislative advocacy, which I'm also going to ask both of you how you feel. So for those tuning in, we kind of join ranks and forces with other fibromyalgia advocates and fibromyalgia specific organizations to meet with our legislators, basically our congressional representatives and senators, where we share our story, we share our journey, we share the impact that fibromyalgia has in minimizing and reducing our quality of life, and the need to appropriate funding for research, and that funding being earmarked for specific driven research for fibromyalgia to identify what type of neurological condition it is. So a lot of people don't understand with fibromyalgia or other medical conditions. It's like, okay, you can have the umbrella under like the World Health Organization and the National Institutes of Health of neurological conditions. That's the big umbrella, but then there's subcategories. So we know that fibromyalgia is a neurological condition. It's been identified, but we don't know what kind. So is it like a neurological disorder, like migraine disorder or epilepsy, or is it an autoimmune condition affecting their neurological system like multiple sclerosis, or is it a degenerative disease like along the lines of Parkinson's? And that's why we advocate that funding be appropriated through the Senate or House committees of Health, Human Services, Labor, Education, and Pension. Ooh, help. That is the acronym. I'm saying help because that's a lot of words to say, but it's the acronym for these committees is HELP. And they're the ones that we go to because they have the power to allocate that funding for research. And so since we've been engaging the past 3 years in federal legislative advocacy, how do you both feel this when the community sees we're doing this and we're getting some traction and spotlighting it on a federal level and finding champions in Senate or in Congress to support this initiative, to advocate for us, to get this funding designated for fibromyalgia research? How do you both feel that has, I guess for a lack of a better term, how do you feel the community's response to that is? How do you feel it's impacting us? Is it supporting us? Is it, again, putting us on the radar at a higher level or a bigger level? Since Al, you're unmuted, I'll let you answer first because Al has participated and has carried the torch down in the heart of Texas, meeting with senators and meeting with, I know a couple of years ago we met with Congressman Crenshaw's office. He's a Navy SEAL veteran. Al, how do you feel the, I guess, tone of understanding of fibromyalgia when you have spoken to your state sen or your U.S. senators of Texas and your congressmen?
Well, as far as like, say, the public, I think it's been a bit mixed. There's so little that's known about fibromyalgia. I just want to step back really quick and mention the fact that, we don't know a lot about it, and it could be degenerative. We don't know. So the funding is super important as far as researching it more and finding out what causes this and whether there's a cure. But I mean, I've been ridiculed online, but I'm steadfast. And but the representatives and their staff that I've talked to, very supportive. I think they understand this is a major issue for a lot of people, and they've been, as I said, supportive just in their efforts to bring it up to their senators, and they bring it up to the House and the Senate of their states and well, the federal government as well. But
if you don't mind, I want to interject about the power of sharing your story, Al, with Congressman Crenshaw's office 2 years ago. We were meeting with his staff, and through that discussion, and this is why I tell people, don't be afraid to share your story with your legislators, with your local politicians, with your county, state, and federal, representatives and senators, etc. When we met with Congressman Crenshaw's office in 2022, one of the staff had identified that they were going through the process because they had something going on with them medically, but didn't show any outward signs, but was experiencing this fatigue and this brain fog and this pervasive chronic pain and just having a lot of difficulties. And that staff person had informed us that at first they had thought, their doctors thought maybe they had fibromyalgia, and they did a lot of testing, and then they were finally able to determine that staff, person actually had rheumatoid arthritis. But when we were in that meeting, having that connection of understanding the gamut in this long process to get a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, that staff person had an inside look of what it's like for us, going through that process of getting tested, ruling out other medical conditions, and finally coming to being officially diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And I just wanted to point that out because people don't think that these individuals in power, for lack of a better way to say it, are going to understand. But when you have these discussions and you end up sharing your story, they end up sharing their experiences back that are similar. And that creates a kismet connection, which I feel helps promote awareness, but also support. Even though Congressman Crenshaw doesn't sit on the House committee that would designate funding for fibromyalgia research, that staff person becomes invested because they went through that very stressful, drawn out process of getting their own diagnosis of a chronic invisible medical condition. And they can say, hey, I understand what they're going through because I went through this with rheumatoid arthritis. And so I wanted to point that out because that was a golden, unexpected opportunity to create that connection with your congressman's office. And now, Evan, you also participated in federal legislative advocacy as well. And how do you feel your experience engaging in this level of advocacy was? How did you feel about it? How did it impact you? And do you feel that there has been, even though it's a slow process, do you feel like there's been some positive outcomes? Do you feel that the community is really getting inspired and motivated seeing these things that we're doing and engaging and accomplishing?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm an outdoorsman. I'm a country guy, and what it feels like is we were stuck in the mud in two-wheel drive. I feel like this started out, we had people that were just suffering. And at the bare bones of the start of this, we had people suffering, laying in bed, looking for any kind of community, any kind of other people that were going through the same things. And so as we were all laying in bed messaging each other, we've now gone from people in bed messaging each other to now we're talking about state, local, and federal advocacy. So we kicked it in four-wheel drive, basically, is what I'm saying. I feel like all of a sudden we have gone from people that had some issues that we were trying to figure out, are there other people going through the same things as we are? Just as Al talked about, lupus and MS come up almost every time when all of our symptoms come to the table. That's something that the doctors look at and they say, well, you tested negative for them, so we'll see you in 6 months. I mean, that's really where it starts. And so now that we've been able to talk to these different legislators, state and federal, about getting more research funding, it's been pretty astronomical in the impact of what our future could hold. And so when we get some buy-in, when they hear about our stories, about the struggles we go through, it is really hard to understand the day in the life of a body that's suffering with this. I'll be really honest. Before my body kind of just set itself on fire, I would probably have a really hard time understanding, and I'd probably get a little bit tired of, man, something's always going on with him, but that's where this is a chronic disorder. You even said pervasive. And I feel like that's about the best word for this. It's something that comes to you that you don't want, that you can't get rid of, that is offensive. I mean, and I hate to even say that, but it's to the point where it comes into your body and you can't do anything about it. And so now that we're getting financial dollars for research and we're improving those things, the real big picture to me is what is this going to lead to? We're all at about our half-life right now. Where are we going to be looking in another 20, 30, 40 years as somebody that has this at a younger age? What are we going to be doing? So does this lead to other fatal illnesses, other chronic illnesses? Is this a precursor? And so, that's really an uneasy question because we can't answer that right now. And when you start getting federal and state buy-in, and they hear your story and they're empathetic, that really means something. Again, that just makes me feel like I have credibility. They respect what I'm trying to tell them. I'm here to be genuine and honest, and share my story. And I hope that what that does is opens other people's eyes that, hey, I'm not here for the attention. I actually despise the attention that comes from this. Again, I want to be Superman. And so first thing for me is I have to admit that I'm not Superman. And I can't do anything about that as far as that goes. But the new person that I am, I'm going to embrace that and run with it, and try to figure out what my new limits are and what I can do, and figure out how to help not only myself but other people that are having to deal with these same situations.
I love how you said you got to embrace the new person you are. And I kind of want to reframe that and just say, you are reimagining who you are. And I look at it like this. Come on. Look at Madonna. Look at how many times she's reinvented herself. Now, granted, she has a lot of money and stuff, and but she's out there. I mean, she's out there, and she's reinvented herself. And what happens when you have a chronic medical condition like fibromyalgia that people can't really see unless if you're in a flare up. And before I move forward with my analogy here, prior to this discussion, Evan and I were talking about with fibromyalgia, we don't ever feel great. Like we're never 100%. Like we might be running at 80% on our really good days. And that we're like in flare ups. And like our percentage of being able to run and do things diminishes over time based on the weather, based on what we're putting our bodies through, based on we can't identify why we're in a flare up. And then there's this very weird space with fibromyalgia that you and I were talking about where we feel like we're on the cusp of, are we going to get worse and go in a flare up, or is it going to slowly start to improve? And I dubbed that, I coined it the fibromyalgia waiting room. Are we going to get better and get what we need done, or are we going to be out of commission for a while? So it's like this weird space we're in where we're kind of in limbo a lot of times. Like we don't feel well in this space, and we know when we're in this waiting room of fibromyalgia, we can't predict which way it's going to go. So we're going to get better and our symptoms are going to minimize, not go away, but minimize so that we can be at a better functioning level to do the things that we need to do as a family man, as an advocate and dog lover and humanist for myself and Al, running your household and your dogs and doing all the hobbies that you have. By the way, Al's just like this guru of mechanics. It blows my mind. It's like, I could take a lawnmower apart and put it back together in like a day and take a car apart. Like just, it's amazing. So it's like, we're in this waiting room, fibromyalgia's waiting room. And it's not a waiting room you like to be in. I mean, if I'm going to be in a waiting room, I want it to be like in a Midas 5-star restaurant waiting for my table, not I'm waiting in this room to, to see which way it's going to go. Am I going to be crashed down on the couch for the week, or am I going to get better and move forward? And I love the analogy that you used about 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive. And what happens is a lot of times we're stuck, using the vehicle metaphor, where our parking brakes on until we start figuring out all these convoluted things with our symptoms and our illnesses, getting a proper diagnosis, going through the channels of promoting awareness and getting credibility and validated. And so through that whole process, we are reimagining ourselves. Some people call it a new normal. I call it adapting and redefining how we're going to do things to minimize the impact on our bodies. And you brought up a few years ago, we were in 2-wheel drive with fibromyalgia awareness and advocacy. And then we put it in high gear. Now we're in 4-wheel drive. And then there's me. I'm like, I want to be a race car driver, so I'm like full throttle. And then people are like, oh, you're in a flare up again. Well, yeah, I'm at full throttle trying to get this, some of these initiatives done and advocacy projects. So, to wrap up and bring this and tie it all together, because we talked about it was like crickets out there, as far as fibromyalgia being in the mainstream eye of the public. Even more so, it was like no one thought twice of men who are afflicted with this, much less veterans, who we often have a lot of compounding factors too. What a lot of people don't realize is many Gulf War era veterans and Iraq and Afghanistan era veterans have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia due to injuries we've sustained in the line of duty, illnesses that we contracted, while in the line of duty, both in deployment and stateside. Exposure to toxic particulates in burn pits, both in deployment, but also again stateside. Like a big thing right now is Camp Lejeune and the toxic water and everything, which has caused everything up to terminal cancer. So we're exposed to all these elements, and we're seeing Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan veterans a lot being diagnosed with fibromyalgia, a lot of times secondary to their service or service-connected illnesses and conditions. So to kind of wrap it up, and hopefully it'll be a good ending of discussing some of the progress that we've made. I'm a research nerd and I'm a history nerd. When I first started my journey, really kind of digging in and saying, hey, there's not a lot of information out there about fibromyalgia. Yeah, there's some support groups, there's some nonprofit organizations, but I felt like, okay, it's great, they're providing supports, but they're really not getting information out to the public. Like, how can we inspire and mobilize people with fibromyalgia to start having these conversations with the powers to be to positively impact our community in the future? So I was doing my research, and I had found that going back to the 1590s, fibromyalgia was actually documented in medical literature back in the 1590s. It just fell under the term muscular rheumatism because they couldn't see in the body. They didn't know what it was like. And fibromyalgia, as we discussed earlier, MS was brought up, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. We have a lot of overlapping symptoms or similarities to different conditions. So over 400 years ago, fibromyalgia was first mentioned in medical literature. Here we are today, December 1st of 2023. From both your perspectives as someone living with fibromyalgia and a male veteran living with fibromyalgia, where do you think we were 10 years ago in 2013 and where we are now? Do you see a huge difference? Do you feel there's more positivity and people wanting to engage in different awareness projects, or even sharing stuff on social media where they wouldn't before? And do you feel, when you look over the past 10 years, how much do you feel, based on your own opinion and perspective and what you've observed, do you think that we've had some major successes and some leaps and bounds here for fibromyalgia, but in particular men living with fibromyalgia?
Well, we're certainly farther along than the 1500s for sure. But yes, 10, 15 years ago, it was crickets. And I think there are fewer crickets now. You know, we're the sun's coming up, and I think you know, more people are starting to see this now. I feel like our advocacy has really helped as far as seeing it. It's difficult to actually quantify that, although I believe it has. Just you look at the support groups and people who have gained awareness through our efforts, and they're starting to come in. What's the word I want? They're beginning to accept, and more people come to the groups, all that stuff. Sorry, I had my brain dumped. So,
okay, we all have brain fog. So maybe this will help. 5 years ago, Al, 5 years ago, right before we connected, and I don't know, you and Evan connecting with me, it's probably both a blessing and a curse, because I'm all like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and this creative thing, and let's go. 5 years ago, would you have seen yourself obtaining state proclamations from your governor or having conversations with your senators or congressmen?
No. I never expected that at all. Didn't think I'd ever be talking to any of them. So as far as what it was 10 years ago and where we are today, it's actually quite amazing what we've been able to accomplish. But no, I really never, never, figured I'd be in meetings with these people and discussing it, and the response that they've had has been fantastic. So I don't know if Evan wants to jump in here, but
yeah, the same question for Evan. Just looking at the past 10 years, the past decade, where were we just 10 years ago, and where are we now from your perspective?
I was thinking about that as Al was talking, and I know even just the basis of using an internet browser search for fibromyalgia, and it used to be you would have like random things pop up from maybe WebMD. You would have a couple resources as far as, hey, this is something that's going on. Now, if you would hop on and just search in your phone, I think you're going to find an extensive library of resources, of documents, of medical and media outlets, both recognizing this. Moving forward on it, in that perspective, in the big, kind of those higher up, higher achieving levels, I see a lot of it now. And when I first really started going through my struggle, which was about 10 years ago, there was nothing. I mean, I didn't feel like anybody understood what I was saying. I didn't feel like anybody else understood what I was going through. And honestly, I felt like the doctors were 10 pages behind behind where I was. And so just based on that, and then, fibromyalgia was like this foreign term. It might as well have been in a foreign language. You'd go in and start talking to the doctors, and they just, it was like, well, that's just something we say when we can't figure out what's going on. I was given that several times by the doctors. And so between that, and then we talked about the sharing and how this impact of a couple of the videos and a couple of the proclamations that included men with fibro, how they really exploded. And I think for so long now, if we're talking about 60% of females and 40% of males documented suffer from this, what's the undocumented number? But all of a sudden, we just reached 40% of a brand new audience that's been struggling, that doesn't know what's going on, and all of a sudden, you have some people talking about it and bringing up these legislative initiatives and the proclamations, and all of a sudden, women are meeting with men, but men are also seeing other men. And I think all of a sudden now the whole community is starting to feel like we all have pieces of this to be able to stand in together. And so
we're all stakeholders. We all have a stake. We are a commodity, and we're also our own stakeholders, but in the community, we're a stakeholder as well. And we're seeing all the different stakeholders within the community. Now, compared to 5 years ago, did you see that kind of, I want to see diversity or inclusivity of so many different groups within our fibromyalgia community being represented?
I don't think so at all. And that's what I was getting ready to get to, was that we have all of a sudden, we're starting to see these rates that are increasing on veterans that have fibro. We're seeing these numbers really start to increase, and we're starting to see that. I think there's many more undocumented people, and I would say on the male side, a significant amount of people that are now feeling like, okay, I think I can have the courage to talk to my doctor, or share this with a family member, or stop fighting and pushing and crashing, because, hey, I need to figure out what I've got. And so, you're not the old person you were. And that's what I was talking about. You're not the old person. You're not person A before your illness. Person B got the illness. You've got to figure out how to be person C, and to be able to live with it, and to be able to work on it, to make yourself understand that you can't just live in the past. You've got to be figuring out what we can do now. And I feel like with all of the awareness coming up, all of the people sharing, all of the states and the nation sharing, and starting to grab onto this, I think from 10 years, we've made significant progress. But I think from the last 5 years, the progress is just unremarkable. And so, again, I think we're rolling 4-wheel drive. We're getting traction nationwide. And I just pray that this lifts up other people that need this help.
So you feel like 5 years ago when we first connected that I would have been able to convince you to do awareness videos and engage in state and federal legislative advocacy? I mean, I know I always put stuff on people's radar and wait, but would you have could you have imagined 5 years ago that we would be having this discussion and all these successful initiatives you've been involved in? Like, would you have thought, oh yeah, this is gonna happen? Like, you're probably like, okay, well, this is a resource out here, Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think you would have gone from there to here? That's what I'm saying. Like, did you felt like you could have, I don't know, I don't want to say predict, but see it as a possibility?
I think 5 years ago, I was in such a battle with the medical field and getting an understanding of what I was going through that I would have told you there was no way that I could have done anything in addition to getting out of bed. I was in such bad shape trying to figure out what treatment to get, where to go, what medicines I needed, what medicines I did not need that I was prescribed. I don't think that, honestly, physically or mentally, that I think I would have been prepared for anything like this. And just you and I have talked about so many treatments and resources and ways to try to balance this. And I didn't have that 5 years ago. And so, just the development of that alone, um, I am one of those people that when I get inspired by something, usually it's because I have to triumph over it. Usually it's some kind of adversity. And I am one of those people that, just like I wanted to be Superman, I want to drive through challenges. I love obstacles because I'm going to smash them. And so when something like this came in, and I didn't think that I was going to be able to get through it, I truly didn't. I didn't know how I was going to be able to get to the point of even advocating for myself, let alone joining an organization to advocate for others. But now that I have, and I do feel like I'm able to, I would say, balance as well as I can right now. That now I've got a new fire for lifting up others in the fibro community. And so 5 years ago, no, I don't think you could, well, you couldn't pick me up out of bed at that point, let alone anything else. So, but now, we're to the point where we're on fire and we're going to keep moving forward. And hopefully I just think about this and where I was, hopefully somebody's watching this right now that feels like they're basically stuck in bed. And let me tell you, if you figure out the resources and you find a way through it, you're going to be on the other side lifting up the people behind you. So that's the true goal of what we're doing is to be able to empower other people to be able to find that support they need
And feel heard and validated. Um, so I'm going to wrap this up here in a few minutes, but I personally, I know people that know me, they're like, Kristal, her ideas of what she wants to accomplish is on ludicrous speed. Like I'll be like, Evan, I want to do this, and this in an awareness video. And in the awareness video, we're going to talk about men living with fibromyalgia is about 40%. And that even though there's research indicating that, like Dr. Claude has surmised that it could be higher due to men underreporting or being misdiagnosed. And I said, but not only are we going to talk about it, but we need to find men with fibromyalgia to be in this awareness video, and they make up 40% of the participants. So, and Al and I have had these conversations too. Al and I have had a lot of conversations with the creativity content part of a lot of the awareness videos that Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia has done, because I've said, Al, we need to make sure we're not just saying this is the statistic of how many men have fibromyalgia. We need to be showing it. We need to find men. Children, this research is very, very much outdated because it's like from the 80s and like early 90s. But there's some research studies that have identified that the statistical prevalence of children and adolescents with fibromyalgia makes up about 1% to 2% of the community. Based on just my observations, interactions, what people have talked to, I think it's higher, and that's why I said more updated research needs to be done. But all we have is that current like tangible stat. So I'd be like, Al, we need to find children, adolescents, or very young adults like 19, 17, 18, 19, who have fibromyalgia. And me like networking, because I'd be like, Al, I'll find the people. Don't you worry. They'd be like, okay. And then I would be like, okay, well, they say that one of the increased risks of fibromyalgia is it runs in families. And I know that from a personal perspective because it runs on both sides of my family. So then I was like, okay, I want to make sure we're showcasing that, not just talking about these things and promoting awareness about it verbally, but actually showing it physically. And so I'm thankful for both y'all. I'm thankful for all the Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia team leaders, team members, and Patriot supporters, because I know sometimes I'll just send a text message out of the blue. I'll be like, hey, I'm thinking about, we need to do this. And then it just comes out of nowhere. It'll be like on any given day on a Tuesday in January. And y'all are like, oh, what is she up to? But the energy that everyone brings, both you and Al and everyone at Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia, without you all, we would not be able to do what we do and amplify voices, promote awareness, engage in advocacy, but empower our fellow, members of our fibromyalgia community, whether they're veteran or not, or military or first responder. So I really, really want to say thank you. I'm so grateful for both of you and everybody else who has had faith in everything that I've proposed that we get involved in, like the Federal Legislative Advocacy Day for Fibromyalgia, but also the awareness videos and trusting each other, because it's hard coming into a space where you felt alienated for so long because of your illness that's misunderstood. I always say that fibromyalgia is the F word of the medical community, and that's when we come into these spaces, it's really hard for everybody to trust that it's going to be a safe space, that there's going to be the support, validation, and information and education there. And so I want to thank you both, everyone who supports Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia, our team members. We're at 518 veterans, military, and first responders living with fibromyalgia they participate either on the website, our website, or within our group on Facebook. Our Patriot supporters, and Al and Evan, the two of you just really taking the lead in your expertise and support, because without you, none of us would be here having this discussion. So I'm proud to know you. I'm honored to be able to collaborate with you. But most importantly, I'm grateful to call you both friends. So with that said, is there anything else either one of you want to add real quick? We have 4 minutes left. Anything else you'd like to add, Al?
Well, I can say I haven't always enjoyed putting the videos together. But I do have a lot of pride once they're finished and they're pretty polished and we put them out, and you see how many people see and respond. And I would put them out on my social media, and people would respond back and tell me they knew somebody with fibromyalgia and that they've pointed them, towards our organizations, and, they're watching our videos, and it just gives you a good feeling inside knowing that you're, at least in my little niche, what I do, it really does, I believe, make a difference. And that's pretty much all I wanted to add.
I know, Alex, especially when I would come in last minute and be like, I don't want this song. I want this song. I need you to find this. He's probably like,
very, very, very true.
Be like, Al, just trust my creative process. I can't explain what I want, but it makes sense in my head. How many times have I said that to you, Al? And I'm like, try this out this way and let's see how it is. But also, there's been times where Al has suggested something like, you know what, that's an awesome idea. Let's do it. So I'm not that hardcore where I'm like, it's my way or the highway. No, there's a lot of room there. Music wise, Al, I'm always like, hey, I want this kind of sounding intro. Like when we did the Team Fibro Reloaded video series, I was like, I kind of want it to feel like Matrix like, but technical like, but like we're pushing through and breaking through like these metal barriers, right? These metaphorical metal barriers. And he goes on his search and he's like, okay, I have this. What do you think of this? And I'll say, hey, I want Team Fibro in the intro to sound like multiple robots saying it. And he was like, okay, let me see what I can do. So those are fun. But then I can imagine on the other side of that conversation, you rolling your eyes going, okay, what other creative ideas is she going to come up with that I need to figure out how to do? But it's a bit of process.
Yeah, there's truth in that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I know how I am, and when I'm very specific about something, there's been a couple of times where I said, no, Al, this is how I want it, because it will make sense in the end when everything comes together. Because it's hard when you're doing videos and you have clips of so many different people and how it's going to work out and in what order is going to work best so it's more seamless. And I'm like, yeah, I have this, I got it in my head, so let's try it this way. But there's been times where I'll switch things around and goes, you know what, this seemed to kind of roll better. And I'm like, yes, it does. So Evan, what about you? Anything else you want to add, or forever hold your peace?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this, and we talk about how our connection through all of this has just continued to stay, and even if you don't understand what somebody's going through, just imagine that hey, what's the worst thing you've ever gone through? That person could be going through that as well, and so having compassion and empathy for people. The people that stuck with me and had compassion and just even cared what I was talking about, those people are still in my life, and a lot of people are not. And so I just think about that, those people that long term, show that care and empathy. They may not understand what you're going through, and that's perfectly fine. But somebody to listen to and appreciate what you're doing and to support you. There's a couple people in mind that stuck around through this long term illness, truly, and just the strength that has. So just thinking about other people and hoping that they stick to it, if you're a caretaker, stick to helping people and lifting them up. And I know that that's a tireless and exhausting, and it's a tough job. But I just think about those people that stayed with me through this, and they're still in my life now. And I think about the people that only saw what they wanted to see, and they're not around anymore. And so I just think about that, and being there for somebody it can be a lot more than you ever imagine. So this has been such a great organization to be part of, to be able to share things like that, and to be able to have other people that actually understand what you're going through, but other people that don't, that are just there to support you. And, being that kind of person for somebody else is pretty tremendous. Kind of the ultimate opportunity now to serve others. So thanks for everybody else that's doing this. And thanks for all that you do, Kristal and Al, and just glad to be here.
Thank you. So in closing, I'm going to leave you two with a little tidbit. You're both Googleable now. If you put in your name in fibromyalgia or your name in veteran, you pop up on Google. You also pop up under the hashtag Team Fibro, and you pop up under the hashtag Vets for Fibro. So when you look back and wonder, like, is this really making an impact? Is my story making a difference? Well, on the first 3 or 4 pages of Google, it is. So that in itself is to show that all the great things you're doing. Our stories are so powerful. I always say that our stories, our life book, we need to share it, because all those chapters, the good, the bad, the ugly, they can become someone else's survival guide. And with that said, I hope everybody tuning in to the Fibromyalgia Community Conference found this informational, and some of my corny jokes a little funny. Just laugh and appease me. And until next time, make yourself care your number one priority. Love yourselves and love each other.